When you don't take time to look at it through other people's eyes. Take some time and reflect on what you believe in your soul. Cause that is the key to life. You gotta let the negativity go.
Hello, and welcome to the What the Fox podcast with your two hosts, Lindsey Fox and Amber Ross. Here on What the Fox, we deconstruct social norms to build better lives. And in today's episode, Lindsey and I are going to take a little walk down memory lane and talk about our first season of being podcasters, because as of today, this is our 33rd episode since we started on January 1st, 2022. If I can remember
Wild,
years and
right?
dates, totally wild.
It is so crazy.
It's
I'm
hard
so
to
proud
believe.
of us.
Yes.
Yeah, we did it, Amber. We did it.
Imagine, if you will, I'm sure most of our listeners, if you've been around for a while, have gathered that I am somewhat of an anxious individual, somewhat of a type A control freak, like perfectionist. I mean, I am a project manager by trade, so I like things to be orderly and planned out, and like I want to know all the things before I ever take the first step. So Miss Lindsey has been working on this for much longer than January, and she and I both have been working on this for much longer than just January. So it feels surreal to be closing season one, like now.
During
It's
our
amazing.
birthday months too, by the way. During our
Yes.
birthday months. I mean, I think that's pretty cool too. But yeah, we've come a long way. I think going into this at first, it was more like I kept putting a little you know, buzzword saying like, Amber, let's do a podcast. Let's do a podcast. And would just
To
keep
which I replied,
dropping it.
what?
Yeah, she kept saying no. She
did.
I felt like I kept asking her out on a date and I kept getting rejected for like 6 months.
Man.
But you know what? Frankly, that's how our friendship started. Well, our lack of friendship started. Our frenemy started back in high
Frenemies,
school.
yeah.
So it just sort of like was our normal at that point. So after 6 months of rejection, she finally was like, okay, fine.
That's honestly like that's how it went. And just the thought of doing a podcast, I was like, Lindsey, you've lost your mind. Like, why? What? Who? How?
Yeah.
Like, because in my mind, people are, and I don't want to like, in the next things that I'm going to say, I am in no way putting down the amount of work we have put into this or the amount of studying and perfecting and all the things, because we've worked our asses off to get this to the point that it is right now. But
Absolutely.
in my mind, looking at people who do podcasts, I'm like, oh, that's the only thing they do. Like they all like podcast is their life.
Yes.
They have all the training. They have like hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment and like all the free time in the world. And I look at you and I, and I'm like, okay, so
Yeah, no, that's not how that works. That's not how any of this works. In fact, you know what? I met someone recently who, this couple, they had so many questions about the podcast. And when we were talking, they were like, oh, that is just so cool. And I was like, well, yeah. And then I was carrying on and I said something about work. And they were like, oh, work. What do you do for work? We thought you did the podcast. And I was like, oh, that's cute. Okay.
That's adorable.
No,
Adorable.
no. This is just like a passion project. Like this is like side stuff. So Amber and I do have our full-blown lives outside of podcasting. This is something we do for fun. Frankly, I think our mission throughout the podcast has remained pretty consistent, but I can feel that we're kind of moving in a different direction, which I think is exciting, which I think will kind of unfold in season 2. But I feel that we kind of started on this journey with the intention of really deconstructing the social norms that we were seeing in our everyday lives and being exposed to, just as, frankly, 2020, 2021 were just like complete shit show disasters of
Yes.
life for the universe. So that's sort of what prompted a lot of the discussion. And then things kept evolving as we kept getting more and more guest speakers on and noticing like this theme of people coming out and sharing like, I want to say like their like warrior stories. I don't
Mhm.
know. It's just like this theme came out with some of these these stories have just been remarkable to hear what people have overcome. And I feel as things continue to shift and transition in this podcast, I definitely feel that we are um, honing in on more of a spiritual element than I think we ever intended, in the sense where it's like a lot of this keeps coming back to this theme of uh, becoming your highest self, your highest
Mhm.
sense of good for society. And I feel that's the direction we're kind of moving toward.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I mean, something that I've noticed, obviously I've had the unique opportunity to meet a lot of the people that you know, because you connect with people in ways that I did not even know like was a thing, because I tend to keep to myself a little bit, and like I stay in
Yeah.
my own little bubble, and I like people. I'm happy meeting people. I'm fine
Which
around
is
people, but like
ironic because you're significantly more social than I am, which is why I think it's so ironic how this plays out. Like you have way more people that you hang out with in person and do social things with than I do. So that's
it's true.
ironic.
It's yes, yes.
Yeah.
Our lives are just an irony. Like the two of us, nothing makes sense. It's not
Yeah.
real. It is real, but like, you know what I mean?
Yes, we are walking contradictions. Yes.
That we are, yes. But it's been really interesting for me to get to see other people through your eyes, because
Mm,
what I have seen through this is the way you connect with people, the types of questions that you ask people, not outside of the podcast. Like, obviously, we know what we're doing here, but how you get to know people and how those interactions happen is, I mean, honestly, it's baffling to me, because you have managed to completely skip the small talk in almost every instance with like every person you've connected with in the last, I don't know, 18 years. And it like, I strive for that because small talk drives me batty, but I also haven't
yeah.
gotten to a point yet where I know how to make that happen in real life. Does that make sense?
I mean, I hear you, but I'm also having a really hard time believing that. I mean, I hear you and I don't
I'm
believe
talking with
it.
like new people, like making new connections. Like, obviously, you and
Oh,
I don't do
okay.
the small talk thing. And like people who are in my inner
No.
circle, we don't do the small talk thing
Yeah, it's
because
like against my religion or
eh, it's
something. I
just
don't
not,
know.
it's not fun. It's very boring. But
Yeah, small talk makes me cringe. I can't stand it. So I think that might be what it is that maybe in terms of um talking with people, and also, hello, I'm a therapist. This stuff just kind of comes naturally in that world.
it's
So I
true.
mean,
Okay,
um
but it comes naturally because it's who you are as a human. Like,
okay, yes,
those
that's
things are
fair
the
because
same.
I've only been a therapist for a few years, so that's true.
Well, you've only been like a working paid therapist for a few years. I believe that Lindsey, as
Oh,
like a
that's fair.
human person, has always been a therapist of some sort.
Okay, that's actually, and now I'm feeling a little seen and attacked.
Oh, I'm not trying to attack you.
No, I'm
Not,
so teasing. I'm so
not at
teasing.
all. Like, if you
No,
want
my
me to
friends
attack
would
you,
totally say that.
I will like fly and just
Yep.
come kick your ass right now. But um we've gotten off topic a little bit, which nobody will be surprised about. But what I did want to share, I was doing a little bit of research as I was kind of thinking about how do we close a season one of a passion project that I think has taken on a shape of something we never expected, but is something that the world clearly needs more of, right? And
Yes, yes.
what I kept coming back to was we've officially had 33 episodes, including this one. Okay.
Which I love that number. I
I do.
love
I
that
know the
number.
threes, man. It is our 33rd year on the planet, right? Like
Yeah,
we are circling in on 34 as humans as our birthdays are approaching.
that's right.
There are over 2 million podcasts currently available which can be consumed,
Mm-hmm.
and over 12% of those only published one episode and never did
Yep,
another one. Like,
that's right.
half of all of the podcasts, so half of that 2 million, have 14 or fewer episodes.
Yes.
So like, I want to take a step
Half.
back and say like,
Ooh,
damn,
I just
like
got goosebumps.
it's
Yeah.
awesome, because we could not have done this and we would not have continued this if it weren't for the people constantly in our DMs saying, yes, like, thank you for sharing this. This
Yep.
absolutely resonated with me. Like, this, thank you for bringing light to this topic that nobody talks about. And like those comments and those messages of listeners saying, please keep going. Like, please keep going.
Yes,
We're enjoying what you're
absolutely.
doing.
Hmm. I could not agree more. And you're right, though. I mean, a lot of people do not know those statistics that you just shared, but you're right. I mean, that was some stuff I was really researching at the very beginning of this journey, when you kept rejecting me.
My
Because
bad.
I
I'm
was like,
sorry.
because I was like, how feasible is this? Like, what do the numbers look like? Could we actually make this happen? Um,
But I
and
love
the
that
more I
you looked
kept
at those numbers and you're like, so you mean I have a shot? Like,
That's fuck yes. That is precisely what I thought. I was like, all right. So if there's only, because to me, I'm like, man, this is a market that needs to be tapped into. I mean, for those of y'all who do not know me, which is a lot of people, I am very business minded. And so while I don't ever talk about my business brain in this podcast, um, I am incredibly business minded, and I mean, a lot of that is actually another facet of my coaching is like business development. And when I saw those numbers, I'm like, this is an untapped market. And half of the people, with all due respect, they either fail at doing it, or they get bored doing it, or they just realize it's way too much work and they just say, fuck it. And frankly, whenever I saw the numbers, I was like, this is totally feasible. We've got this, and we balance each other out really well. And so I feel that we both offer different insights and feedback to these
mhm.
things. And I know that I kind of bring more of a weight or a heaviness in some way at times, but you offer like a level of levity and lightheartedness. And it's like that yin and yang that I think we both offer, which I love, and apparently our listeners do too.
Yeah, I mean, it has worked well for us, and I'm grateful. I'm so grateful for everybody who has tuned in and who has continued to provide feedback. And some of the feedback has been hard to hear, right? That people are maybe not happy with the topics that we cover, or not in agreement with our personal opinions. And you know what? Like, that has its place too. And it's the beautiful thing about a platform like this, because we can hold space for both of those things. And I don't have to agree with you. I don't have to agree with Lindsey. I don't have to agree
Yeah,
with any of the listeners. But what we've asked you to do is to tune in with an open mind and an
that's
open
right.
heart and open
That's
ears,
right.
because you
Yeah.
are allowed to disagree, but you're not allowed to do it in a hateful way. So just like side note, caveat that one.
Yeah, and honestly, the feedback that I have personally seen, I mean, we both have received different types of feedback from different
Yeah.
people under different circumstances, but honestly, I would say 99.9% of the feedback I have received has been completely positive. And there's been maybe one or two people who have thrown some shade over certain
Yeah.
topics. And while they are completely allowed to do that, I hear their feedback and I say yes, and I can see and hear that you really were not listening with an open mind. And so that's not my space. Like that's not
Yeah.
we're not a good fit for you, and that's okay. So keep moving, go on to your next podcast. So
Absolutely.
that's cool. Yeah, I hold nothing against that. But
No, and I
Amber, I
share
had a
that to say, like, and I'm sorry to speak over you, but I share that to say, like, the seemingly negative feedback also provides a little bit of a fire for us to keep going, right? Like, where the positive
sure.
feedback comes in, and I'm like, hell yeah, sister, like, we're going to keep doing the thing. And also, like, I want to share your story. Like, I want to provide a platform to allow more opportunity for stories to be shared. That feedback where we make people uncomfortable, I'm like, yep, then it was the right thing to say. If I made you
Yes.
uncomfortable, like, I don't want to hurt
No,
your
I got you.
feelings,
No, I hear
but
what
if
you're
I made you
saying. That means
uncomfortable, yes.
we're on the right track. Keep going on the
Yeah.
right path. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so curious to know, Amber, what has been your favorite episode
Oh my gosh.
or favorite episode, topic, or guest speaker? Do you have one?
Well, I can't pick a favorite speaker because they're all amazing. Like, everybody that has come on to this podcast has had a unique thing about them that I think makes them amazing.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite episode was the first episode with Jay Tinsley, because like
Uh,
that had me in side stitches. Just the whole thing was amazing. I think that's probably my favorite episode. What about
yeah.
you?
So That Jay Tinsley's episode is called Power to the People. We highly recommend it. It was so beautifully, I loved everything about that interview.
And his second
Going from,
episode was even better. Like,
right. Yes. That was our ode to Father's Day. That was
yes.
awesome. Um, oh my gosh. I genuinely don't know if I have a favorite. I would say I've really enjoyed some of our one-on-ones. I've
Hmm.
really enjoyed some of our one-on-one discussions. And I know that we were doing more one-on-ones at the beginning, and then kind of like gradually, like as the guest speaker requests were coming in, we just started doing all guest speakers. But I love some of the topics that we covered within our one-on-ones because I find myself referencing them and sending them to my clients all the time,
Yeah.
where it's just like, we're able to offer a little psychoeducation or insight on, or perspective taking on a topic that maybe they're holding in some kind of a way. But it's like, you know what, save yourself the session. I want you to listen to this as your homework, and then let's regroup in our next session about this.
Yeah.
And it kind of gives some space to like process it out in a different way. So like one of my favorites in that sense was on the dark side of resiliency. I thought that was really helpful for particularly my coaching clients more than anything.
Yeah.
My coaching clients have really kind of connected with that because I think there's some there's a little bit of a pattern with our personalities and how we operate. Like attracts like.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah. I mean, I work with a lot of like very strong-willed and like high achieving people in my coaching business. And I think that many of them can relate to that topic of resiliency. Um, let's see. I absolutely love having Mike Manning on
Oh my
from
gosh,
the
yes.
real world. Or I say the real world
Yes.
because that's like how people know him, but uh, just to like reconnect with him and see just he's still the same Mike. He's still the same
Yeah.
person that I remember, but just knowing him from before he came out and then having him use our platform in a way where he felt so comfortable in going through his journey of saying, I wasn't sure if I wanted to tell the whole world on national television if I was, that I was bi,
Yeah.
and, sharing his story of like how he felt silenced in Hollywood about I can't really share who I am because I work for Disney, to all of a sudden he's winning an Emmy for a role, an acting role that he did where he was actually a gay man in this
Yeah.
acting gig. So it was just to hear his story and to see and feel his joy in that episode, I thought was like really, really beautiful. I really loved having
Absolutely
him.
agree. I mean,
Mhm.
it's so hard to pick anything that's a favorite because they've all been just so fun for different reasons. But
Oh
I
God,
have a
yeah.
I have a question.
Okay.
What is the most surprising thing about podcasting? And just FYI, anybody who's been around knows this. We did not script this. Lindsay has no idea that my list of questions. I have no idea her list of questions. Like,
I have no list, but I was just going to comment on one more thing though before I
oh
answer the
yeah.
question. I was just going to say one of the more surprising episodes that we had that like took me off guard emotionally was Lauren Diaz and her
Mm,
episode I'm Coming Out, which I know these both are centered around pride, but maybe it's because like those episodes are so fresh in my mind because it's August and this was just
yeah.
in June. But yeah, that episode totally like totally took my breath away, and I
Yeah.
was not prepared for kind of like that undertaking in that episode. So uh, I definitely recommend people listen to that as well.
For sure. That was an absolutely incredible episode. And the one that
Yeah.
y'all just did, that was her follow-up episode was just like,
Yeah.
obviously,
Or
I
part
unfortunately
two.
had
Yeah.
to miss that one, but her part two was just amazing and heart-filled and just moving in so many
Yeah.
ways.
And that was unique just because it's the first time, which Lauren and I had talked about that of just it was my first time really talking about my divorce
Hmm.
in a public way. And so it seemed appropriate for that sort of being like my first real time talking about my divorce in a public way to do it with a girl who just started talking about her identity in a public way.
Yeah,
So that was
absolutely.
kind of a neat little duo for last week for sure. What was your question again?
This is the story of our lives, just in case y'all are wondering. Um, what is the most surprising thing that has come out of this podcasting thing? So what your idea of what it was going to be like versus what it was really like? What's the biggest thing that surprised you?
Oh, I was going to answer this in a different way, but then you gave
Well,
me
answer it however you want to answer it.
yeah,
Take it
my
how you
first
will.
thing, but honestly, my first thing was I think some of the side opportunities that have come out of it.
Mm,
Like it's not even the podcast itself, but the side opportunities, the side collaborations, um, the new people that we have met, like having Adrienne Wood, the TEDx speaker from the Tales of the Educated
oh my
Debutante.
gosh. Yes. I actually just got goosebumps.
Like,
Yes. Yes.
yes, like that episode was so wild and how we connected, like all that stuff, just, the connections that have been made, even like the press opportunities and, how this podcast is sort of like giving us leverage, frankly, in our coaching businesses is just,
Yeah.
it's amazing. And we're so grateful because I also feel like this platform allows us to connect with our target audience. Like
Hmm.
there's that goodness of fit. It's really kind of weeded out that process where it's like you don't know, usually want to have an entry level session or whatever to see if there's a goodness of fit there. Whereas I feel through
Yeah.
this platform, our clients are able to get to know who we are, how we operate, what our personalities are like, and kind of assess like would we vibe or not. So I feel like it's been helpful in that sense for sure. But in terms of like most surprising, I would say some of the collaborations and opportunities that have come about.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. I mean, I went into this with no expectations. Like I think I told you at the beginning, I'm like, okay, like I'm doing this, but I am putting zero expectations. I'm putting nothing around this because I have a history of like my expectations being too high and then being like not happy with outcomes and things like that. So going into this, I was like, I have
Yeah.
no idea what to expect. I have no idea where this is going. Like,
Yeah.
but I'm along for the ride and like I'm open to the opportunity. I'm going to be here. Like we'll see what happens. So I think for me, I have enjoyed it a lot more than I expected. Like I
Oh,
have genuinely had a lot of fun getting out of my comfort zone and
yep.
getting like because I and I actually was talking to somebody about this the other day. I have a tendency, I really like to stay in the shadows. And I've told you that many times. Like, I love
Yes.
to be the one standing on the sidelines cheering for other people.
Yeah,
I
that's not where you
love,
belong though.
like, but it's like, it's comfy there. Like,
Oh, I understand. I
I,
totally get it. And just like I don't really like talking about, my my shit. Like
yeah,
there's I have a lot of layers on my own stuff, but like I have understood and known that a part of this of my personal growth and development, but also within this podcast, it's important for us to get comfy with being uncomfy. You have to
yeah.
kind of lean into the discomfort at times because that's where the growth lies.
Well, and I tell my coaching clients all the time, growth doesn't happen in your comfort zone. If you're trying to achieve something better, if you're trying to go after a
Mhm.
big goal, doing the same things you've always done is not going to get you there. So,
Yeah.
but sometimes hard to take your own advice, especially in a situation like where you're putting yourself out on blast and just like
Yes.
we posted that first episode and I kind of wanted to hide because I'm like, okay, like we're doing the thing and now everybody knows we're doing the thing. Like,
Yeah, yeah. There's like no turning back. But I think that's
no.
just it. Whenever we're manifesting something, you just have to claim that energy,
Mhm.
girl. Like you just have to claim it and say, that's mine. That's what I want to do. I'm gonna go get it. That's mine. And I feel that this podcast has been no different. It's, after you said yes, it was game on. I was like, all right, because I see how you are with your fitness, right? It's like
Yeah.
once you commit to a plan,
Oh yeah,
this
I'm
girl
in.
commits to a plan. Whereas, the irony is like I hate planning in a lot of ways, but it was I knew as soon as you were like game on with like I'm committed to this process and let's do it. Uh, I knew that we really did have a great shot and turning this into something amazing. And I feel like we're honestly just getting started.
Absolutely. Like this is the end of season 1, but it's far from the end of What the Fox. It's far from the end of Lindsey and Amber and like all the things that we get
Girl,
to
we'll be back
do.
in like a month or two.
Right. Well, I'm just trying to like set the stage so people don't know, like, or so people do know, we're coming back. We're just taking a little respite.
We're just
Um,
taking like a month off. We
we're
just
taking
we
our
just
birthday month off.
Yeah, because we've earned that shit. I mean, there's really nothing else to say about it. We deserve to have a birthday month off, and that's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm excited to come back for next season. I'm excited to see what it looks like. I'm excited to spend the next couple of weeks
Well,
dreaming
that's
and
just it.
thinking and
What
like,
is it gonna look like? I mean,
I mean, I don't know. I I
Do we
don't
want to,
know.
are there any little snippets or hints?
Do you know something I don't know?
Actually, I feel like you know something that I don't know, but that's all right. We can tease through it after recording is over.
It's funny. It's funny because literally, I think people don't realize exactly how we manage this. And it's always amusing to me when we bring guests on because, like, we have a little, like, a brief outline, couple of questions just to kind of set the tone of what we want to cover with someone. But we don't script anything. We don't ask them questions ahead of time. We don't like none of the things because Lindsey and I want to learn in real time. Like, we want, and we also kind of appreciate that allowing conversations to go where they're meant to go instead of trying to
Hmm.
force them into a direction of where we expect them to go. Um,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
feel like going into season two, I know we're going to see that continue. I mean, we're not going to begin scripting things like that.
Yeah.
I might have to jump out of the car, like of the what the Fox car, not like a literal car. But like I would not be committed to that. That would be a
Jumping
no-go
out
for
of the
me.
what the fox car, I don't even know what that means.
This is my brain. But I do think we'll
Are we
continue
getting
to
a car?
see.
Is that a
Oh,
business
hey, that would be
expense?
cool.
Maybe
Yeah.
we should go mobile.
Oh my goodness. That would be interesting.
Listen, I'm down. I have the ability to do it. I'm ready.
I mean, the planner in me is like, okay, so what would we need to make that happen? And like, what does that
Zoom,
look like? And
a car and Zoom. You can
like
stay at
Lindsay's
home.
like,
That's fine. I'm out.
stop making this so
Yeah,
complicated.
you're fucking up my dream. Let's halt. Stop making shit complicated. Just go with the
Okay, okay,
flow.
okay.
Let's just ride it. Just ride
Details,
it.
details. Yes, no,
Yeah.
but I actually
I would
don't
love
know.
to
I
do that.
think I would love to set the stage for us to do more sharing of who you are as a person and also who I am as a person and kind of like sharing more about how we got to this point and kind of what makes us tick and things like that because we did very surface level, very high level, who we are, what we do, but getting into the
Mm.
deeper levels of that I think would be really interesting. And I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, like, hello listeners, what do y'all want to hear? Like, what do you want us to bring to you in season two, to keep you listening and to keep you interested and to keep you learning and honestly to keep making you a little uncomfortable.
It's so true. And actually, there's sometimes I'll post on Instagram like in the stories so that people can comment anonymously or whatever, so it's
Yeah.
not publicly shown in comments. Um, we've had a few different recommendations. I mean, that's how, honestly, that's why part two with Lauren ended up coming out in the way that it did, where I also
Mm-hmm.
shared parts of my stories because someone had responded and said, can you guys talk about breakups some more? Like, can you talk about
Yeah.
more about romantic relationships and breakups? Um, Another topic that was suggested, which I think actually, Amber, with both of us, the more that we get into our nitty-gritty stories, this will probably come out where we can address this person's request. But someone requested that we talk about workplace abuse.
Mm.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting, because frankly, if you remember one of our like maybe like our third, fourth, fifth episodes was it's called The Great Resignation, and it was,
Yep.
or no, wait a minute, I don't know if we called it that or the burnout of a Black therapist.
That was it. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, where we had guest speaker Brittany Smith, and she was talking about, frankly, a lot of workplace abuse that she went through and how it
Mm-hmm.
led to her resignation, which aligned so much with what we saw and witnessed in 2020 and 2021. And as we move through 2022, it's just so many people are like, you know what? I'm so sick of being treated like shit. I'm over it. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's honestly it's a great theme that we're seeing in many, many different levels of life, whether it be workplace or in your friendships and your relationships. It's sort of
Mm-hmm.
like, you know what? I'm ready to release what's no longer serving me. I'm ready to let that shit go.
Yeah.
And so I kept seeing some themes like that with some of the stories, or on Instagram, the replies that were
Yeah.
coming.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it, I think, centered around letting go, um, and talking about tough topics that are focused on letting go. um, which, workplace abuse and how to respond to that is a big part of that, because the workplace and whatever you're doing, whether you're in the military or you have your 9 to 5 job, it becomes a huge part of our identity in some ways.
It does. And unfortunately, abuse happens more often than I think what anybody realizes, especially in the
Oh yeah.
workplace.
Yep.
So and I mean, that's one that I think will be a heavy topic, but it's one that I'm down to tackle because it's something that, we can empower people to get out of those
Yeah.
situations and empower them to
And by sharing
release.
our stories.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, we both have some pretty intense stories over the course of our lifetimes. I know that I know for me, I think another good topic is sexual harassment in the workplace. Another topic that is like, yeah, we've got these cookie
Yep.
cutter, things that we talk about are like the sexual harassment trainings at works. And it's like, yeah, but do you guys really understand what that looks like? Like, do y'all really, not like some, and I don't mean to diminish this, but I don't mean some of like the flaky things that you might see with the hashtag Me Too
Right. Right.
on social media. And some people have really poured their heart out through that. So I'm not saying that's a generalized statement, but I mean, like, sexual harassment is very real on a lot of different levels within the workplace. And,
Yeah.
um, it's just not something that is discussed in a way that is needed, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that one thing's for certain, right? We're going to continue to bring topics that shed light on things that aren't necessarily discussed. We're going to continue to try and piece together helpful information for folks to
Yeah.
live their best lives and to live in their
Yeah.
highest calling and to live, in a way that sparks joy. Because I think if we do not check it, our world is going to become a much darker place before it becomes a much brighter place. So I
No,
think
it's
that,
so true.
yeah,
So
these
true. And even
opportunities, like it's sunshine in a bucket, right? Like we're trying to do our part here.
no, it's true. But I think just kind of like frankly, like airing some of the dirty laundry is important. I mean, even in the context of relationships, they're not like how I know that we talked about like you and Eric have this beautiful marriage, but it's like y'all are not perfect. Y'all have
Oh, heck
arguments.
no.
Like y'all are, it's just I think in that sense, like we and Lauren was talking about this in one of our last episodes, is just we normalize what it is to look some kind of a way online and to present ourselves to society. But at the end of the day, it's like we all have our quirks. We all have the things that we don't want to talk about, that are maybe like taboo to talk about. We all
Mhm.
have our kinks. I mean, nobody
Yeah.
likes to talk about sex, but like
Nope.
seriously, sex is like the number one thing whenever especially as a therapist or even a coach, I feel like when you're talking about relationships or like how someone is functioning in the world, your sexual identity and how you express yourself and how you connect with other human beings that you're romantically attracted to or physically attracted to, that's also very important.
Yeah.
um, and we don't talk about it. Like, people do not talk about these topics, and I feel like by tippy toeing around them, we're reinforcing the pre-existing shame that exists around certain elements in that world. And yeah, I don't know, I think it's time to talk about some of this stuff, but it'll come out naturally, as it should.
That it will. And I mean, I'm excited to get to share and learn because something, I mentioned I was surprised by how much I've enjoyed this. And I was equally surprised, which is funny to say, but I'm being honest here. I was equally surprised at how much I was able to learn in doing this, right? Because like Eric would have laughed, and I too would have laughed a year and a half ago if you said that I figured out how to edit videos and like work any sort of technical aspect of a podcast, because that's always been something that I'm like, oh, absolutely not. Like, I work in the IT field, but I'm always like, no, 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 I'm not tech support. Like, I'm over here. Like, that's
Yes,
not a thing in my wheelhouse.
you're the
Yeah.
public speaker they push out in the front stage. True
Yes,
story, guys.
that
That
is
we'll
true
we'll tell
story.
that one another time.
That one will come out another time. But thankfully, there are a lot of helpers behind this, and they're people that y'all don't see because they are behind the scenes. But Lindsey and I had a lot of help getting this podcast off the ground, and we would be remiss to not mention that and to think that like we did this in a vacuum. We put a great deal of work into it, but we also had folks providing feedback, providing guidance, providing helpful tutorials. Like this took a small army to make happen and to give us the confidence and the knowledge to make it happen.
Yes, and I actually just as you were saying that, I'm like, oh my gosh, also major shout out to Northeastern School of Law. I'm sitting here like I cannot even believe that. I'm sorry, I've got something in my hand. I just cannot believe I have not even mentioned them throughout this whole process, but I think it's because I was waiting for some, some things to finalize. But major, major shout out to Northeastern School of Law because they have they have been very gracious in supporting What the Fox podcast and all of the trademarking and intellectual property rights and what have you, and have just been an amazing resource. So, of course, I just have to do a little plug there for them, but they are an incredible law school whenever it comes to intellectual property rights and trademark law. So, if you, for whatever reason, are interested in that path, highly recommend them. They've got some amazing professors and just an incredible faculty as a whole. So we hope to definitely continue that relationship with them because while again, this is like a side that I don't really talk about much on the podcast. I do offer consulting to attorneys as well as working with attorneys that might be navigating like maybe in the need of crisis coaching calls
Mm-hmm.
to support them with their clients that are in crisis that could essentially put them at risk of having their entire case sabotaged. So yeah, there's a lot there, but that'll come out at another time. But with that, yes, Northeastern has been incredible.
Absolutely. And it's funny to me, like, there's all these things going on behind the scenes. And when you look at a podcast on the surface, you like, there's no way you can know everything that goes into it. And even all the research we did, all of the ideas we had, like everything we put into it when we first got started, we still really didn't know what we didn't know. Right.
Right, but that's life, girl. That is
It
life.
is.
The
It
game of life
is.
is tossing the dice and see what happens. And I think the
Man.
number one lesson that I can reflect on that I'm still leaning into and actively working through is going with the flow.
Yeah.
Honest to goodness, is going with the flow because I feel that the more that you and I get comfortable with learning how to go with the flow, the more um, the more we will be put on the right path to where we
Mhm.
need to go with this.
I agree. And I think both of us have seen a lot of growth in that area over the last several months. I mean, when we first started this, I was like sweating at the start of every episode because I didn't know what to expect. Like, I had no idea like
It didn't
how
really
to
help.
do
I'm
it
sorry.
or what to, well, I mean, yeah, you threw me to the wolves and that's okay.
I
Um,
did, because I'm like, we don't need an agenda. We don't need a plan. Let's just press record, Amber.
And I'm like, just so that y'all know, like I organize calls as part of my day job, and there's always a very strict agenda, like down to sometimes timestamps of like how long we're going to talk about a certain thing. So doing this, I'm like, what do you mean there's no agenda? And now the thought of having an agenda for What the Fox, I'm like, absolutely not. That takes away all my creative energy. Like it takes away
Yes.
all of my ability to just flow with whatever's going on. And I'm like, oh,
There
we could
you
probably
go,
bring this
girl.
into other parts of our lives and just be
Mm.
fine.
See, yin and
Um,
yang. This is how we work. Yin and
it's
yang.
good. So we've talked about a lot of things. We talked about, what we liked, what we enjoyed, what surprised us. What is one thing that you want our listeners to kind of take away from season one? If there was just one overarching concept, idea, or thought, like what is that?
You can do it. You can fucking do it.
Yeah.
That would be my takeaway is like after hearing so many things that so many different people have been through, including myself,
Yeah.
including you, like, after everything that we've heard and been a part of in the last, I mean, 33 episodes and beyond, I would say the biggest takeaway is you can do it.
Yeah.
Um, and like really believing, and I know how hokey it sounds to like use affirmations, but truly, starting your day with the mindset of I can and I will, and it is going to
And I
happen.
am. Not even
That's
I
right.
will, like I am. I'm doing the thing.
Yes, absolutely. And claiming that and
Yeah.
owning it and leaning into it is like, you can do it. And if anything, if there's anything that people walk away from, even if they aren't even back for season two, it's just like taking away this
Yeah.
idea of, yes, you can do it. And hopefully we can be here as examples of the fact that you can get through um, things that you would not even expect, because even if it's not our personal stories, please listen to so many other people's stories that we've had onto the show, because it's pretty remarkable what the power of the human mind can accomplish whenever we set the intention to take our life back.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, mine is sort of similar in that the theme that comes to mind is like, you're never too old to make a change in your life. Like, you're never at a point where you
Mm,
can't change something to take it to that next level, or to leave a
yes.
situation that's no longer serving you, or to,
Yep.
put yourself into a position where you can serve others. Like, I think so often we think we're either too young or too old, or,
Too
whatever,
much.
too much, not enough. Like,
You know what? So
what?
I'm so sorry. That just reminded me. I've got to share something that came up the other day. Speaking of too much, right? So whenever you just said, when you're like too old, too young, too much, not enough, all these things. I was talking to someone the other day about too much, and my friend said, listen, the next time someone says you're too much, tell them go get less. Go get less. And that's frankly how I feel about, people who think that we're too much or this podcast is too much. Go get less. We're just not a good
Yeah, go
fit.
find less. It's fine. You're not going to hurt our feelings. I mean,
I thought that was the most amazing
I love that.
response. But so I just had to bring that. I think that's probably another takeaway from this is go get less. If we're too much, go get less.
Well, and I mean, honestly, like, anybody could take that advice. Like, if someone is telling you you're too much, then they can just go find less. That doesn't mean you need to make yourself smaller, because
No, that's
that's
right.
just, that is noise, and I'm not here for it. Um, but I think we've covered a lot, and without divulging too many ideas for season 2, which are not quite baked yet, I think we
Although
can't say see you next Tuesday, but we'll see you
in the fall,
in the fall. Yeah,
we'll
we'll
see
see
you
you
in
in
the
the fall.
fall, which, in my brain, I'm thinking it'll be September, but, we'll just see what happens. We'll keep you guys posted, but we'll see you in the fall. And, the number one way to stay tuned and understanding what we're doing is clearly by connecting with us on social media. We both actually do have TikTok as well. I mean,
It's true. Yeah.
granted, that's we don't have like what the Fox handle it on TikTok, but you can find all that stuff through our link tree, which we'll put in the show notes. But we are on Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and all the things, so you can find us there, and we will make sure to post on all the platforms on what the Fox is coming next.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for sticking with us and providing feedback and just all of the energy and the love and the encouragement. And we will see you next season.
Sounds good. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
And we all sing, everything is gonna be just fine. It's gonna fall into place. The sun is gonna set on your terrible day.